evening, everyone. A very happy Women's Day to all our audience. I, Mudita Raj, Assistant Professor, Delhi Metropolitan Education, welcome you all to this international panel discussion where we meet inspiring women global faces titled Gendered Media Space, Shattering the Glass Screen, organized by Delhi Metropolitan Education and International Association for Media and Communication Research, IAMCR, Gender and Communication Section. DME Media School has a tradition of celebrating Women's Day where we salute women from all parts of the country and all walks of life, with two programs including Inspiring Women Global Faces and Inspiring Women Indian Faces. On 5th March 2022, the first part of the celebration was organized under the umbrella Inspiring Women Indian Faces with a panel discussion titled Women's Health and Cancer, a Tale of Doctor Spirit and Patient's Courage. The program was aimed at spreading awareness related to women's health and cancer. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that this panel discussion is being conducted under the umbrella of International Women's Day series Inspiring Women Global Faces. I would now like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to all our viewers. Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. The institute offers BBA, BA LLB, BBA LLB with BCI approval, and BA JMC programs. DME believes in imparting world-class education to its students while training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enables them in taking up challenges of the industry and creating a space for themselves with their competence and vigor. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the school include the BG Varghese Guest Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FTP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICANN and Vritika, Convention of Media Students, and newly added in this list is the Vibrant India series. This webinar wouldn't have been possible without the support of the Gender and Communication section of IAMCR. I now request Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Assistant Professor, DME Media School, to introduce the International Association for Media and Communication Research and Gender and Communication section to our audience. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Mudita. I wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day who are present in this session today. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce IAMCR, a global professional association of media and communication researchers. It is supported by the contribution of experts and volunteers with 80 section and working group chairs and deputies, 30 members of its international council, a 5-member executive board, many members of various committees and task forces, and more than 2,800 active members. The association promotes media and communication research across the world, addressing socio-political, technological, policy, and cultural processes. Its members include individuals and institutions from more than 100 countries from all the continents. The strong academic and professional experience of its members and their diverse geographical and cultural origins are the binding forces behind this strong international association. IAMCR members promote and defend the interests of the professional community of media and communication researchers for freedom of academic thought and expression and in career advancements and development. They work to advance the public presence of the field of media and communication research and support the contributions by researchers to local, national, and global policy agendas, and also for the expansion and progress of media education and media practices. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, facilitated the establishment of the association, providing the founding platform for the association in 1957. I also take privilege to briefly introduce about gender and communication section of the organization. The objective of the Gender and Communication section is to foster and encourage all knowledge, scholarship, empirical work, and theoretical debates in the field of gender and its relation to media and communications. The aim is to engage with issues of gender and the media through various perspectives, disciplines including social sciences research, This section wants to encourage the conduct and dissemination of research that uses gender as a primary thematic work around media, culture, and communications. To study the different epistemological frameworks and queries through deliberations and discussions from sociology to politics and feminist theory. The section thus serves as a meeting space for both established and young scholars across the world. It also aims to nurture younger scholars and those from developing countries who are interested in seeking answers related to gender media through this global academic community. The members are also committed to transcend artificial boundaries that give rise to divisions in the study of gender across the social sciences. It is also committed to equality principles and to be a space for further research that aims to deal with the current structural challenges of gender inequalities within the world, like intersections within the layers of oppression, race, ethnicity, nationality, and other ideological or philosophical descriptions. This section is also concerned with how gender considerations and identities are reproduced and consumed through media production and consumption. The aim also revolves to get research-based papers with new insights into the way similarities and differences that are experienced in everyday life of audiences and how they engage with gender and related disparities. With this, I again welcome our esteemed panelists and thank you. And we are looking forward to listen from our esteemed guest. Over to you, Ms. Mudita.
Thank you, ma'am. The management of DME, Delhi Metropolitan Education, has always strived to provide global education and support to our students. We thank the management for their constant support. Now, without much delay, I would like to request Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, Head, DME Media School, and member IAM CR, Gender and Communication Section, to give the opening address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mudita. I welcome all the graceful women on board. It is indeed a matter of great pride for DME Media School to have you all on the special celebration of International Women's Day. In the first edition of Inspiring Women, Global Faces in 2021, we organized an interview-cum-interaction-based digital live program wherein we invited Ms. Catherine, Dr. Pooja Arora, Ms. Pamela Shabi from UK, Ms. Rachel Lipson from US. The program was inspired by the book Public Relations, The Changing Global Landscape, authored by Catherine. This year, we have women of substance from UAE, Lebanon, Spain, Brazil, USA, Pakistan, and Maldives, who have excelled in their field and are working tirelessly in their domains. They have contributed in the areas of filmmaking, research, advertising, radio, and have rightly raised the issues of gender discriminations and women empowerment. The credit of the session goes to Dr. Waziha Raza Rizvi, co-chair of Gender and Communication section of International Association of Media and Communication Research. Due to her efforts, we are able to get such a galaxy of guest speakers amongst us. I'm sure the deliberations we will have today will open new dimensions for the media and communication scholars. I once again welcome you all and look forward to your insightful talks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Associate Professor and member IAM CR, to please give a brief of the panel discussion and introduce our discussants for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mudita. I welcome all the guests here, and I'll start with the panelist, Dr. Katia Maria Belisario. She is an associate professor at the Faculty of Communication at University of Brasilia, UNB, completed postdoctoral internship, a visiting scholar in the Department of Media, Communication and Sociology at the University of Leicester, UK, and at the Communication and Consumption Practices program at Marketing School in Sao Paulo, Brazil. PhD in Journalism and Society from UNB, master's degree from California Polytechnic State University in the United States, and bachelor's degree in social communication from University of Minas Gerais. She worked as a public servant of the Ministry of Social Development and Fight Against Hunger, and in the Brazilian Agency of Industrial Development, leader of the research group Gender Communication and Sociability at CNPq Brazil. She is also a member of Gender and Media Group of the Department of Media, Communication and Sociology at the University of Leicester, UK, representative in Brazil of Emidias, an organization of communication and information science linked to UNESCO. She is also a member of Scientific Committee of the Communication Technologies Development Magazine of UNESCO. I welcome you, ma'am. Our next on the board is Ms. Tami Garcia Gold, a filmmaker, a professor at Hunter College City University of New York. She is a documentary filmmaker, visual artist, and educator. She is into the Department of Films and Media Studies at Hunter College. Gold's films have been at the forefront of social justice, focusing on race, women's LGBTQ rights, and policing in United States. Her films have screened at Sundance, Tribeca, and the New York Film Festival, and in over 250 festivals worldwide. Gold is a recipient of fellowship from Rockefeller, Guggenheim, and Fulbright. Gold's artwork has also been featured in the Living Arts section of the New York Times. She is a member of New York Women in Film and Television and the New Day Film Scoop, and part of the alternative film movement of 1970s. She is also a contributing writer for Think, Point, Shoot, Media Ethics from Development to Distribution. Some popular films directed by her are Passionate Politics, about the life and work of feminist activist Charlotte Bunch, Land of Apartheid, A Ripple of Hope, a documentary about Robert F. Kennedy's visit to South Africa. Every Mother's Son, which won the Tribeca Film Festival Audience Award, Juggling Gender, Politics, Sex and Identity, about a woman who lives her with a beard, Out at Work, Lesbians and Gay Men on the Job. Her work has screened at the Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum, and Chicago Arts Institute, the Kennedy Center, the American Film Festival, the British Film Institute, and the Public Theatre, among others. I welcome you, ma'am. Next is Dr. Safa Usman, Associate Professor, College of Mass Communication, Ajman University, UAE. She received her PhD from Cairo University and currently holds the Associate Professor and Coordinator of Radio and TV Program and Manager of Radio and TV Studios in Mass Communication College at Ajman University, UAE. Her research interest focuses on new media, political communication, and gender. She has participated and presented at numerous international conferences and has ardent passion for the latest techniques in visual communication and filmmaking. We welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Christy Mahdi, Assistant Professor at Notre Dame University, Lebanon. Dr. Mahdi has over 20 years teaching experience in English, media, and communication to both undergraduate and graduate students. Her research interest includes gender, women's rights, Arab media, journalism, media policy and regulation, communication theory and practice, public speaking, and advertising. She has been involved in the development of academic syllabi for graduate and undergraduate courses, also collaborations with international bodies such as UN on gender and media related syllabi for universities across the Lebanon. She is a communications advisor on strategy, speech preparations, and delivery as interpersonal communications in both the corporate and academic environments. Next is Dr. Patricia Nunes Gomez. Dr. Nunes is professor and the head of Applied Communication Science Department in Faculty of Media and Communication at Complutense University, Madrid, Spain. Ex-chair of the Advertising Research, TWG, in ECRIA, European Communication Research and Education Association, member in Digital Culture and Area and Children and Media Group, PhD in Communication Science in 1992 from Summa Cum Laude. Her research interests are about gender and new profiles in digital communication, digital competence, gender and teens, gender curriculum in education, research in different innovation projects, more than 40 research projects to her credit, now working in gender, violence and teens and social networks. Spanish member in UNESCO program about global media and information literacy, Spanish member in UNESCO Unit Network of Gender, Media and ICT, a partner of GECA, International Group in Gender and Audiovisual Media. We welcome you to Ms. Lucia Gloria Workways Rodriguez. She is a researcher in UNESCO Group from Complutense University of Madrid, Spain. Pre-doctoral researcher at Complutense University, currently writing a thesis on queer Latin American women's cinema, member of the research group GECA, Gender, Aesthetics and Audiovisual Culture, conducting research on contemporary queer TV shows and films, gender stereotypes in cinema and women's cinema. Dr. Mariam Shakila, Honorary Consul of Belgium in Maldives, former cabinet member and CEO of SIMD Company. Dr. Mariam Shakila has worked in diverse fields, including business, teaching, prior to joining politics as a cabinet minister in government of Maldives. As a politician, she undertook duties at several ministries, environment and energy, foreign affairs, gender, family and human rights and health. At present, apart from holding a diplomatic position at Honorary Consul of Belgium in Maldives, she is CEO of SIMD Group of Companies, heading diversified business from trading, hospitality, education, health and wellness. Very active in civil society groups, both nationally and internationally. She facilitates economic, social, and political empowerment of women and youth, conflict resolution, building peace and security, and human rights. Through her linkages with prestigious groups such as International Civil Society Action Network, Women and Security Leadership, South Asian NGOs, a member of Civil Service Action Group of UN Women. As Vice Chair for Asia Pacific Regional Committee for International Scouts and Guide Fellowship, Secretary General President for the National Scouts and Guide Fellowship, and chairperson of two other NGOs, Adu Women's Association AWA and Women Art Craft Association of Maldives. She is also a member for International Executive Council of SAARC Chamber Women Entrepreneur Council, the President for Maldives Women Chamber of Commerce, as chairperson for Institute of Counseling and Psychotherapy and International Medical Diagnostics Center. She contributes towards building a healthy community. With several awards to her name, such as International Influential Leader for 2020, Global Women of Excellence Award 2019 from Madhya Pradesh Association of Women Entrepreneurs, Athena Certificate of Excellence from International, and Business Role Model of the Year by Women in Management and IFC. We are honored to have you, ma'am. Ms. Tahira Habib, Senior Manager Outreach and Complaints, Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Tahira Habib is the known human rights defender and trainer from Pakistan, a civil society activist for past 2 decades. She specializes in the human rights of women and minorities. She has worked extensively in different capacities for the promotion of women's rights and rights related to gender equality in the region. In her current position at the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, she has led various projects focused on different aspects of women's rights, especially marginalized and vulnerable women. Her work includes advocacy at the policy level, as well as outreach across Pakistan to feel the pulse of the masses. Bridging the gap between grassroots women and policymakers is the core of her work. In her capacity as cultural advisor at the US Consulate for more than 20 years, her work mainly focuses on women's rights and empowerment. She has written on women's rights in national media through her column under Focus on Women. So we had the total of 8 panelists today. Now coming to the moderators of the session. Professor Dr. Waziha Raza Rizvi is a trained in USA, UK, and Norway. She is the co-chair of Gender and Communication section of International Association of Media and Communication Research, in Associate Professor of School of Media and Mass Communication, Beacon House National University, and Director Film Museum Society, Pakistan. She is also President, Pakistan National Association of Fulbright Alumni and Fulbright Alumni Association, Lahore. She is Fulbright, FCO, SSS, Shevering, and GIMG Research Scholar, and a filmmaker with about 100 television productions, documentary film, quiz shows, and TV commercials to her credit. Rizvi specializes in film and media research and has a large collection of archives for Pakistani films, including those of the subcontinent from the pre-partition era. She has produced films on gender and minority, to name a few: Right to Spouse Selection and Honor Killing, Why Are Marriages and Kids Considered Women's Greatest Achievement, a study of BBC's Urdu's 3-minute 11-second video shot in Pakistan and viewers' comments on social media, A Hindu in Pakistan, A Madman's Diary, Destination, Cultural Transformation and Redefinition of Pakistani Minorities, Pakistani Press Towards Religious Minorities, Cross-Border News Framing of Social Issues in India and Pakistan's English Areas, Beyond Grades, Advancing Global Learning Through Personal and Social Responsibility in a Globally Connected Peace Journalism course. Our second moderator for the day and the only man on the house is Dr. Amrish Saxena. With over 4 decade experience, he has been in media communicator, educationist, researcher, journalist, broadcaster, and development expert. He has worked on all media platforms, print, radio, television, films, digital during last 4 decades. Dr. Saxena has published more than 20 research papers in journal and books. He has presented more than 50 papers in national and international conferences. He has guided and has been supervised 20 PhD and MPhil students. He has been associated with more than 20 universities in various capacities. Dr. Saxena is Vice President of Global Media Education Council, GMEC. He has visited China, Australia, United States, UAE, Egypt, Portugal, Spain, and France in pursuance of his academic interest. He has 46 books to his credit, so as sole author, main author, chapter writer, editor, and co-editor. He has remained associated with 2 research projects of All India Radio and World Health Organization in IMC during 1990s. He has organized 6 seminars, conferences as convener, organizing secretary in association with UNESCO, SIMCA, ICSSR, Deakin University, Australia. He was the lead faculty in conducting training of trainers program on strengthening a gender-sensitive media environment in Maldives in collaboration with Adu Women's Association Maldives under the aegis of IPDC UNESCO for the Journalist of Maldives. He is also the member of IMCR. That's all for the day from my side. I welcome everyone and I hand over back to Mudita.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure the audience is also very excited to listen to the panel today. Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School and a member of IAMCR Gender and Communication section, was the ideator of this collaborative Women's Day webinar. I now request Sir to please share the concept note with all our audiences. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mudita. So it's a matter of great pleasure that all of us are here to celebrate the International Women's Day, and it all has become possible with the support of Dr. Wajia Raza Rizvi, who was very responsive to my proposal when I said that this kind of webinar we can organize on this day. And then thereafter things progressed and we all are here in this session. So to begin with, I will talk a little bit as to what was behind this idea and what all we have planned to discuss in this webinar, which will be followed by an address by Dr. Wajia. She will be adding to this. And then we will come to the presentation of each of the panelists in this session. And that obviously will follow by the interaction, which will be cross panelist finally, and then we will also be taking up questions at the end of this because there's a very reciprocal, very responsive audience here, comprising the media faculty members, researchers, and also the students of journalism and mass communication, who are very eager to listen and to put up their queries to respective panelists at the end of this. So to begin with, as we all know, and why there is a need to celebrate this kind of day, International Women's Day. Because despite all that has happened over the years, we still feel that women are deprived of the space which they are entitled to. And when we say space could be within the homes or at the workplace or out on the street, a lot of changes have taken place. There's no denial to that, particularly after the Second World War, when the world started changing in Asia and Africa, and democracy started settling in many parts of the world. So last 50 years of the last century, if we look into the developments which happened, so a lot of things have happened. But despite this, even not only in the developing countries, but even in the developed countries, there is a lot more is to be done. And if I can make a reference to this COVID-19 pandemic, that has hit hard everybody in every country, in all men and women, but particularly the loss has been that of the women more, because if we look into the job losses which have happened, and if I can quote the statistics. During the last 2 years of the pandemic, 96 million people lost their jobs, or they were thrown to extreme poverty. And out of this number, 47 million are the women. So women were comparatively suffering more as compared to men. Now, looking into the racial and ethnic minority and the women, the kind of responsibilities that they normally take care, right from the childcare responsibilities to managing household stresses and handling office responsibilities, all this makes a lot of pressure on the women. And on the other hand, under such circumstances, they are mostly not able to make it to the top either. I mean, rather, in other words, we can say they are not allowed to rise up to a level in all kind of organizations. And since this particular discussion of today is more specific to the media sector, the women who are working in the media organizations, so women even in media sector, they suffer with a lot of insecurity and vulnerability in this today's world. So that is what we normally call this glass ceiling. So glass ceiling is very much there, and a lot more is to be done to see to this that either this glass ceiling is not there or it is comparatively much weak, so that more space can be opened for women. If I refer to a study that has been conducted by McKinsey and Company that was completed in 2020 after 5 years of hard work, it was found that women are well engaged in media industry, though their engagement varies from country to country. And if we can further look into the findings, that even in the United States, where there is more emphasis on gender equality, women in media profession endure a more toxic work environment than males, and a glass barrier that hinders them from reaching to the top positions. Like in other sectors, women in media face a lot of obstacles. Developments in women's position and involvement in the media worldwide, as well as their image in the media, has been gradual but noticeable. The analysis, this study also discovered that media material, especially portrayal of girl and women, continues to be primarily patriarchal, gender insensitive, and occasionally violates the rights of consumers, as also the media duty and accountability. In the media of developing countries, and if I can refer to, because I was also reading a study that was conducted in Pakistan, and since I belong to India, I know as to what are the conditions in India, because I myself have worked in the media organizations on the journalism side. So based on that, I can tell you that in developing countries, including both India and Pakistan, the number of females in decision-making positions has increased over the years, but then their numbers remain poor, particularly compared with the male peers. And gender balance in the leadership, decision-making, and governance procedures is critical for advancing gender equality and empowering women. Despite advancement for women in media practice and media management, the broken rung has remained a significant impediment for the last 2 years. This particular expression has been made in this study which I'm referring to. Media sector has failed in bridging the gender divide, particularly during the pandemic period. The statistics are often similar when looking at the global ratio of women to men. The continuous coverage gap results from the media's obsession with leaders at the expense of everyone else, and the well-known glass ceiling, which prevents working women from advancing to leadership roles. So this webinar will wander through gendered media space to find out the magnitude of the shattered glass screen. So I finish with these words here, and I will request Dr. Wajia Raza Rizvi to please take it forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ambrish Saxena, and thank you, Manmeet Kaur, for introducing gender and communication section. Dr. Sushmita Bala and Dr. Manasvi and everyone else. And thank you all the guests who joined at the last minute. Of course, Dr. Ambrish Saxena, I'm grateful to him for proposing the idea and grateful to every member of the section who agreed to join in today's session. I think Dr. Ambrish Saxena has very well explained the objective of today's session. And considering that we have spent a lot of time introducing the session, and probably we have taken 10 more minutes about this session, I would just try adding that yes, it's extremely important for women, and women are producing not only films, they are also contributing in research worldwide. The problem in Pakistan and all these areas is very clear. And I think it's our common objective that we work on these things together. So women participation in media production and media research and all these women issues can be improved over a period of time. So if we look at, we know that women are the largest consumers of film and television worldwide, but even still they consume and they contribute, but they keep facing this glass ceiling problem in all sectors, in starting from home. Right, so women are facing all these problems. So I would suggest that we quickly go to today's program and start discussing.
Yeah.
And I would suggest Dr. Ambrish Saxena that we start with the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Vajia. So to begin with, since we have very eminent panelists to be part of this webinar, so I will start with Dr. Katia Maria Belisario. She is a communication faculty in the University of Brasilia, Brazil, and she has worked a lot. She has studied in the United States, and she has worked a lot with regard to various research projects in the US, in Brazil, in UK, and she has a lot of experience in this field. And particularly, she has worked with regard to the topic that she will be speaking on, the invisible pandemic. And this is not in reference to the pandemic that we have been facing for the last 2 years, the corona pandemic, the COVID-19, but it's a pandemic which has been there from much earlier time and which is going to stay, and which is something which is to be fought with all vigor. And this is violence against women in 21st century. So this particular aspect she will be talking about, and we are looking forward to have some more details of this aspect of violence against women. Dr. Katia.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm honored, very honored with this invitation. I'm very proud to be here and with you, all of you. So special and happy day for all of us. Happy Women's Day, International Women's Day. And good morning, and here in Brazil, good morning, good afternoon for some of you, and good night in India. And I'm very, very honored to be here. And I will talk about this invisible pandemic, because we used to do this, to call this time of the pandemic of invisible, because a lot of domestic violence, rapes, and femicides happens at this time. And I have some statistics, some data from Brazil. According to the Brazilian Public Security Report 2021, 1 in 4 women was victim of violence. Every 10 minutes, a woman or girl was raped. Every 7 hours, a femicide happened in the country. So this is really sad. In the pandemic's time, the families stay together and join when females were faced with domestic violence, rapes, and things like that. I used to say that that's not the time of invisible pandemic, but the women are invisible. because of many things. We are trying to conquer we have very development for women, but still we are invisible. And I will show this as unequal weights in 21 first century is still we have different weights for men and women, unequal opportunities of jobs for women, lack of political representation. In my country, only 50% of women are in Congress, voiceless, no voice, unrecognized housework, a lot of housework for women, racial and social class prejudice. So still we have an invisible cause, feminist cause, is still in Brazil and in the world. And this violence is very, it's a date, this date is very impression. We are very, in this situation need to change. We are living the 21st century, and then we see wars and rapes. Now we have a Ukraine situation with a lot of rapes, and we need to see this situation, and we need to have public policies. And today it's a Women's Day, but we need to pay attention of this voice. We need to pay attention of this situation that happens all over the world, and we have to stop this. And so this is my invisible women. Is still invisible women. And the pandemic is the situation that still happen for women all over the world, and we need to change this. This is what I want to talk in this day. I think it's very important, these dates, and to show the situation and the need of voice. That's what I shall tell us about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Katia. Now, moving on, we have a very eminent person with us, Professor Tammy Kasia Gold, who is a filmmaker, who is an academic person, who is a researcher, and who is one person known across boundaries for the work that she has done in gender sensitization, in filmmaking, and teaching film to young students and the women. And she will be talking about today the alternative film movement of 1970s and 1980s impact on women making media in 2020. She will also talk about the role the community-based media organizations have had on chipping away at the glass ceiling. So I will make a request to Professor Tammy Gold to please express her views.
Thank you. It's great to be here and with all my sisters from all over the globe. And of course, our brother. We need intersectionality. We need to be able to say no more silos. We want everyone in the room. And to make change, what I've learned is that we really need to break down the silos of issues. To me right now, I want to talk about some victories and some wins. And I go back into the 1970s. I feel like I've been blessed that I was born at a time where we really saw change. We believed in a future that people would really experience equity, whether it's gender, racial, sexual orientation, the whole gamut. And I want to jump backwards a little to talk about the early days. In the United States, and my framework in this discussion is specifically within the boundaries of the United States. In the United States in the 1970s, there was a burst of independent women's groupings coming together to deal with the lack of space for women media makers. And when I say media makers, I mean, it could be journalists, it could be filmmakers, documentary, narrative. The space was tiny. And so out of that came organizations, and the organizations came out of political movements. And I say this because I still believe that we have to look at political movements where our influences to create greater space for women, and especially this year of International Women's Month. Women Make Movies was established in 1972. It was established because there was no entity that celebrated and distributed the work about women by women. And this is critical because 1972 was at that moment where feminism was blossoming. And so one thing could not exist without the other. There had to be this dialectic. There had to be a movement where feminism was at the forefront of discussion. And then when that discussion takes place, we see the absence. We see the need to break down barriers. In the same year or thereabouts, there was New Day Films. And I don't know if you all know of New Day Films, but New Day Films is a co-op. And it's a co-op that embraces to this day men filmmakers, women filmmakers, gender non-conforming filmmakers. But we have to look at the origin, 1972. It was formed by feminists. It was formed by feminists because there was no space. There was no space, not just about making media, there was no space to distribute. Let's remember, we can make all the media we want, but if no one can see it, what are we doing? New Day Films was established to push the boundaries, and we say, of real estate, the media limitations. There is a limited amount of space, right? On television, in movie theaters, in newspapers, and New Day Films was created to push that space. At the same time, we see other organizations growing. We see that there was a group called Newsreel, and Newsreel was formed again. This is 1968. Again, it came out of political struggles. It was not specifically feminism. It was really the kind of intersection of social justice. Interestingly, at the formation of Newsreel, it was primarily men who were the people who led the organization. And if I was to deconstruct that and look at why, it's because men at that time still, and I'm speaking specifically about white men in the United States, still had priority of accessing education in media, in film. And because of that, we saw a huge struggle in Newsreel to create space within that organization, fighting for social justice in the media. Women still had to push to get visibility and their work seen. I'm only mentioning a few organizations. And the reason why I do this is because I always like to bring a sense of that we've had growth, that we can continue to grow, and that what I learned from the question of my early experience in Newsreel, in New Day Films, and Women Make Movies, is that with social movements, we can bring greater change and greater visibility to women filmmakers. And that brings us to right now, and I'm talking New York City, New York State. There's the New York Women in Film and TV. This is an organization that's considered a kind of like I want to say, career orientation type of organization. But at its roots is breaking down racial barriers, not just the question of women. And to me, this is where I would hope we can have some discussion of how the connection of hate, how do we break that down? And if we're talking about women and we're talking about more breaking that ceiling, breaking the glass ceiling, how do we weave into that discussion the question of race and white supremacy? So those are my comments.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Vajia, please take it forward. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Now, I think our next guest is Dr. Tamigul. Thank you so much. And next guest is Dr. Safa Usman from University of Ajman University, UAE. She will be talking about awareness of Egyptian women of their rights by using social networking sites. Dr. Safa.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wajiha. Thank you for all. And really, I'm so happy with this committee today, because I think this now it's a private day for every woman, but for me, special day because I'm sharing everything nice with you with this day, International Women's Day. So really, I appreciate to be one of this event. Thank you so much. I'll start directly about my topic. This topic related to Egyptian women, awareness of Egyptian women of their rights by using social network sites, especially Facebook, because Facebook is the most tool or the most social media Egyptian women follow. I need to tell about this study or apply on Egyptian women, how women understand social network analytics is a convergence of concept and perception about the fundamental right and culture, relativism, and social practice. It was found from this study, Egyptian women in study sample are exposed to social media regularly, especially for Facebook. Maybe half of the sample uses this tool, Facebook or account, sorry. Most important motivates of Egyptian women, most topic following from Facebook, like political life or issue related political life. Many of them for health issue, especially with this crisis. Have fun or free time to entertain. Pages related women interested with women's affairs, subject social relation and family problem, news of women NGO, women, traditional women, things like decor, furniture, clothing, cooking, like this. Most of the topic already women interested. Egyptian women consider that information published about their right issue on social network sites as a basic knowledge source. Majority of study sample members express their opinion and participate effectively on social network sites, which is inconsistent with opinion that the new media allow followers, women, to have their voices and comments heard on what is being raised on social network sites. Egyptian women confirms the social network sites provide their information on women issue and their rights, especially during any event, current, even in crisis. We find an increase in women political awareness and their right to political participation, such as participation in the revolution, constitutional referendum, and election, whether by nomination or voting. Most voting in any election come to women. The results reflected women awareness of many aspects of social rights and their rejection of domestic violence, wife beating and harassment that it has increased in the street recently. There is a weakness in women's awareness of their legal rights, and especially we find that they are not sufficiently familiar with the personal state law. The women issue social network discuss are most of them social issue like such love, marriage, marital problem, and family relationship with most of have from sample. But I need to concentrate about the women asserted, followed by issue of women political participation and its importance for her and its effective role that Egyptian women play in political life. This all previous result reverse part of theoretical framework, social influence of digital activity on women. The social networks enable the Egyptian women express her opinion was free to what suits her in the way what she needs. She wants as well dialogue and interaction with others from anywhere. We have sample for hashtag this. I think this hashtag familiar for many women, strong independent women. This hashtag, when I asked women what is meaning for you, most of them, maybe 51.5 sample tell this hashtag for me is negative image for Egyptian women because it spread recently as radical women, not to support them. This from sample. 46 from sample Egyptian women confirm the social network site in eroded or formed the image or bad image of women. Some when you talk some issues in Facebook by joke, by ridicule something. But we have achievement to Egyptian women happen from 2 days ago. I think this matching with International Women's Day, this achievement related for the first time 76 years ago, an Egyptian woman was appointed now a judge in the state council, where 98 Egyptian women now were appointed to the Egyptian judge platform. This unprecedented, amazing achievement for Egyptian women. This so this good news for us to finally we can see women on judged council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Safa Osman, for your insight in contributions and of Egyptian women and their learning of their rights and social relations in society. Our next guest is Dr. Christy Mary. She is assistant professor at Notre Dame University, Lebanon. She has over 20 years teaching experience in English media and communication studies, and she is involved in a lot of consultancy work with women's studies in the Arab world, the United Nations, and Oxfam. She will be talking about status of women in Lebanese media. Dr. Christy Mary.
Thank you, Dr. Wajiha. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. I hope you can hear me well and my internet is not cutting off.
You're good.
Good. I would like to talk a bit about women in Lebanese broadcast media, and then maybe move to the discussion to something that I've been really thinking about, which is redefining success, and should we redefine how we define the glass ceiling? So in terms of women in Lebanon, I've got some good news for you. First, historically, women were the first to appear on the screen. And actually, 4 women were the face of Lebanese television for a long time. And we're talking late 1950s. So where are the women now? And what has happened to them? Early on, they were actually in the 50s, they were producers, they were script commentators. So there was strong presence for women even early on. But have they managed to break the glass ceiling? I'm going to talk about the glass ceiling in terms of three dimensions. First, leadership positions, and second, pay gap, and third, it's soft and hard news, so news coverage. In terms of leadership positions, women in broadcast media in Lebanon form over 50% of the staff. They have, at senior professional levels, they have actually established near parity with men, almost 45%, because they occupy positions such as directors, producers, and senior writers. But if you move up the corporate ladder to senior management positions, their numbers become a bit lower and they reach around 30%. Of course, this is due to a number of factors. First, Lebanon's broadcast media is either family-owned or owned by political parties. And unfortunately, we don't have that many women in politics. Actually, they form nowadays less than 50%. With the pandemic, this went back, less than 5%, I'm sorry. With the pandemic, this regressed. Also, patriarchy, family responsibilities, and other organizational structures prevent women from reaching those leadership positions. However, in terms of pay gap, the news is actually good. there is no pay gap when it comes to men and women in Lebanon. Actually, they receive the same pay for the same job, which is great considering that in many countries, there's a pay gap when it comes to women. The difference in pay is only attributed to experience, to qualifications, to skills, to seniority, and to connections, but it's never attributed to gender. The third issue I want to discuss is the soft and hard news or news coverage. In terms of news coverage, also the Lebanese television newsroom is unique because there is no soft hard news dichotomy. So there aren't fields for women and others for men. Actually, women journalists do not only cover news, but political news. They cover war, crime zones. And lately they've covered, if you're up to date with Lebanon's news, the country's October 19 revolution, the August 4 Beirut blast, they're everywhere. And I think the main reason that there is no, this binary or dichotomy between soft and hard news coverage is because first, the aggravated security situation in Lebanon, which has helped increase the scope of women's news coverage. Second, the exodus of men from the media because of the lower salaries has contributed to women actually filling in the gap and taking that role. Of course, we might not think of it as a positive, but it actually is. And also, the other thing is that the existence of women in large number in the newsroom compared to men acted as a catalyst, pushing them to the forefront in terms of coverage of hotspots. So we see female journalists as forming buffer zones, actually, which is quite interesting between the security forces nowadays and the protesters. And this shows the important role that women can play, especially when it comes to peace, to security, and to avoiding conflict, and especially in conflict zones at many times. So you can see that women in the newsroom do not only form the majority, but they are also occupying decision-making positions. They have not reached the very top yet. They still need time. And I think, and I hope that this media newsroom opens the door for these women to actually reach political positions so that through those political positions, they can also infiltrate our media, because our media is owned by our political parties, unfortunately. And here, I would like us all to question on this special International Women's Day, the meaning of success. Should we limit success to status and to money, and to positions, or should we question that success and maybe, put in a woman's lens or a feminist lens on what success should mean, right? Should we look at internal factors when we talk about success in terms of a family work-life balance, or resource enhancement and satisfaction? And that's where I'd like to leave the discussion, perhaps, redefining also that glass ceiling and including some internal criteria in that definition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Christie. So moving on, let me invite Dr. Patricia Nunez Gomez. She is head of the chair for digital communication for children and adolescents. And she has worked a lot in this particular area among the adolescents and women of young age. And she has done her PhD in communication sciences only. And today she will be talking about the findings of her research that she has done to find out the gap dreams of girls on at what age girls stop thinking about boys' professions. So Dr. Patricia, please come over and take over the session.
Thank you so much for the invitation to stay here in this wonderful day, and so happy to share with you. Okay, I'm working with girls, boys, and children in general and adolescent in an European project called Safe Internet for Kids. We have just finished also research about violent gender in social networks. We research a lot in digital world. So we work in advertising literacy and media literacy that I think is very important for the future of our children and adolescents. So the main objective I want to share this afternoon or this morning or this night is to understand what kids want to be when they grow up and how are the future projections they have of themselves, and how gender roles and sociocultural constructions are having an impact on the representation of masculine or feminine jobs to detect actions. That's the important point and key moment of intervention to find against gender stereotypes and empower them to achieve their goals. So we have been working with 4 and 5 ages, year old, 7 and 8, and 9 and 10 years old. The main highlights, because we don't have time, is to start the discussion, is girls. Girls have incorporated in their discourse the fact of wanting to be mothers in the future. Their stories are based in more normative behaviors and emotional aspects. They take into account responsibilities when they are talking about their future. Reinforce characteristics related to beauty and physical aspects. Professions related to take care of the other people, especially little ones. So the main jobs they want to have in the future are teaching, but not for herself, just for the others. Health in the second place, also arts, dancing, etc., and for science and engineering. I have to say that both boys and girls want to be scientific, working in the future. Boys' tendency to talk about the future in most successful terms, reinforce characteristics related to strength, power, and winners, and profession as sports, science, engineering, safety, but as adventure or protect people, and pilot, because they want to have a car or a plane in the future. I want to highlight that until they are 6-year-old, they think it's possible to achieve what they aspire to. Later, they perceive more difficulties. Parents' discourse is very important about their self-esteem. For example, in the case of the girl, saying about dangerous or complicate if they want to choose one of the jobs they want to. So at those moments of self-definition, it's a sensitive stage to any kind of information that contribute to providing them with arguments and references. Social networks at very important environment have a big responsibility with stereotypes. At the first stage, for example, for a 5-year-old, they think or they want to be as their grandmothers or parents or uncles, etc. But afterwards, they want to be as celebrities or influencer people, and they comment about it. So especially in social networks, we don't have any rules, and also in advertising with the new formats of advertising that they don't recognize and they don't know if there is advertising or no, we have to take care about it and how they are improving their media literacy. For example, for girls, if they want to post in social network about music, most of the time they prefer to have a male name than female male. So it's important because they have to choose different names depending on the contents. And just for finish some of the sentences, boy 5 years old, I imagine I am tall and strong like the Hulk. I imagine myself with a lot of muscle and lifting weights. It's a problem for adolescents now, also the stereotypes of masculinity in social networks. And girl, I will be a pretty teacher, very good, with dangling earrings and a bag. So thank you. This is all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Patricia. Now moving on, I would like to invite Lucia Gloria And she is also working with Dr. Patricia in the University of Complutense in Madrid. She is a pre-doctoral researcher, and she has been working in gender, aesthetics, and audiovisual culture. So she will be talking about today about the percentage of women, the less percentage of the women who are into films, directing films, and which is particularly critical considering how many of these women are actually qualified to make films and they have degrees in film study. She will also talk about the possible causes and consequences, and perhaps talk a bit about her experience working in Hollywood and how they were contributing to her feminist activism. Yeah, Lucia.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure to be sharing this panel with so many sisters from all over the world. I hope all of you are having a very combative International Women's Day. So when I was asked to participate in this panel about the glass ceiling in the media industries, and given that I specialize in film studies, I asked myself one simple question: has the glass ceiling been shattered in the Spanish film industry? Is it actually getting any better? Is the situation improving fast enough? Because, well, it is very difficult to deny that it is improving. I also knew that I wanted to sort of answer this question or debate this issue from three different perspectives that come from both my personal experiences and my research. Not only I have worked in film production, both in Spain and in Los Angeles, but I have also participated as an activist in associations of women filmmakers, and I have been conducting research in gender film studies and stereotypes for like more or less 7 years. Given that today is International Women's Day, I also wonder what occasion is better to remind us that the personal is also political. That's why I will be talking a little bit about my personal experiences in the film industry. And because the world is already a very bleak place right now with everything that is going on, I also wanted to start my intervention on a positive note. In this year's edition of the Berlin Film Festival, which is one of the most important film festivals in the world, the Golden Bear, which is the most prestigious award, was actually given to Carla Simón, who is a Spanish woman filmmaker who just released her second feature film. This is a historical event because it's never happened before in the Spanish film industry that this award has been given to a woman. So I know this is a little bit of an obvious question, but why is it important that women are directing more films nowadays? Why is it relevant that it is us, women, who are telling our own stories, writing complex female characters, and implementing a different perspective on the world? It is obvious to all of us that all culture and industries, but particularly popular culture, have a fundamental role in the socialization process of people all over the world, on the interiorization of gender roles, and so on. Everything that we don't see, what we don't talk about, doesn't actually exist for us. As Professor Tammy Gold was saying before, it doesn't also matter when that women are making more movies nowadays if nobody is seeing them. And there is also an economic aspect that comes into place here. I'm going to give you some numbers that I'm going to go through quite fast because I understand this is a bit tedious when we talk about hard data. But the Association of Women Filmmakers in Spain, which is called CIMA, and that I have collaborated with for a while, has released a report last year on the number of women that work in the Spanish film industry. It is not so terrible as in other countries, as feminism is quite a big part of the public agenda here in Spain. It is 33% women that are working in the Spanish film industry. So 1 in 3 people that work in the film industry are women. However, the pessimistic side of this number is that only 19%, 1 in 5, are directors. Most of the women that work in the film industry work in production design and makeup and costume departments, because generally speaking, femininity is more associated with organizational roles and so on than it is with creativity and authorism and so on. Going back to economic aspect, which I think is a really big issue since we live in a capitalist world, I wanted to mention that the average budget is half for the films directed by women than men. So we are directing less films, and the films that we are directing have less money, which means that they're going to have less commercial distribution and therefore are going to be seen by less people. This is also due to the fact that in Spain, there are two main film studios. One is called Telecinco Cinema. I actually worked for them for a while and do not recommend the experience. And the other one is called Media. And in the past year, they only supported one feature film that was directed by a woman. The big studios do not trust women with the productions, essentially. They do not trust us to direct films that have big budgets. This economic aspect has also impacted the kinds of films that we are directing. The majority of women directors actually work in animation and documentaries because these are genres that, generally speaking, require less budget. However, then again, a little bit of optimism here. In 2020, all the main national film awards, including the Goya, went to women. Last year was the year that we had, well, last year, no, actually 2020, not 2021. I don't even know which year I live in anymore. Was a year with the biggest, highest number of women nominations for the film awards, for the Goyas. Although this is positive, I think that the COVID has also had an impact here. Less movies were released in 2020, and the movies that were released generally were movies that had a lower budget because they did not need to get back all the money they had invested. So that partially explained why the projects directed by women were so highly represented amongst the film festivals and so on. Moving on really fast on the causes and consequences of this, I would say that the main cause, or one of the main causes, has to do with widespread gender roles. There is less trust in business women leading relevant projects with huge budgets, because we are not seen as business savvy or good leaders, I suppose. And there's also this idea that the director is associated with the author theory that originated in France. And the idea of the author, of the creative genius, is a very sort of racist, sexist, middle-class idea. No, we generally imagine the film genius to be a middle-class white man. There is also the lack of reference. Before the 20th century, there were very few women directing films in Spain, and the ones that were actually directing movies were often invisible. My research group has written two books about it that I can share with all of you in case you're more interested in these aspects. And there were also few awards, very little awards for female directors. And the consequences are also quite obvious. First of all, is the prevalent stereotyping in films, gender stereotyping. There is no female gaze, we're often sexualized, we're utilized as plot devices. A lot of the films that are released in Spain every year would not pass the Bechdel test, which means that they don't have more than 2 female characters in the movie that are talking about something other than men and the relationship with men. And this is just talking about women in general, but if we talk about LGBT women or we talk about racialized women, the situation is even more dire. And the last consequence that this horrible sort of like situation has on us women is the sexist industry practices that are happening all over the place and that we all know about, the Me Too movement and so on. It is very difficult to succeed in the film industry as a woman if you don't have somebody that's sort of supporting you. And generally speaking, they will try to take advantage of their situation. It is a very male-led industry, and when you're a young woman, you're quite vulnerable to predating attitudes. So it's quite depressing. To just wrap it up, I do think the situation is getting better. Public funding schemes in Spain actually award extra points to projects that are led by women. So I raise a question to all of you. I think that gender quotas may be a way towards solving this issue. There is an increased awareness of feminist discourses that has been fostered by associations, by the Me Too movement, by the 8th of March. There is also a higher number of young women filmmakers that have successful careers that actually direct more than one feature film. Like in Spain, we have Carla Simón, Pilar Palomero, Carol Rodriguez, and luckily more students in film schools choose direction as their profession. And this is also to do with our work as professors and researchers in film studies. We need to encourage our female students to actually dream farther than production positions or makeup departments or costume departments. They have the right and the responsibility to write their own stories as well. So that will be it for now.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I just want to thank Dr. Lucia Gloria for this insight into Spanish film industry and women's status in the industry. I would next invite Dr. Mariam Shakila. She is Honorary Consul of Belgium in Maldives, and she has worked with lots of big organizations. I think we already had a introduction of her. I would just invite her to discuss, whatever she wants to share with us today. Dr. Mariam Shakila.
Thank you very much. And then happy International Women's Day to all of you. I think we have all broken the glass ceiling and we have reached where we are. And all of us have got tips to share. So I would touch a little bit on the media industry in the Maldives, which actually tries to build the glass ceiling that we women, strong women, break. And then why it is so, and the patriarchal heritage, how it affects us. I work with a lot of women, and then to try and empower them in different ways, either politically, economically, and socially as well. And then, so what I'm going to share my thoughts and my experiences and what I think we should all be doing. Not us here, we have, of course, broken the glass ceiling. So that's what I'm going to share. So we all know that it is an undeniable fact that the media, which is interlaced throughout our daily lives, has one of the most pervasive and influential effects on how society views men and women, because they communicate images of unrealistic stereotypical sexes, which limits awareness as it eludes their messages into societal consciousness. Media thus plays a huge role in rebuilding this glass ceiling that women of substance, such as the eminent people that we see here, struggle to break. In Maldives, various mediums of media, including advertisements, print stories, and depict images that sustain false societal views of gender, with males being the cultural hero and females as being feeble and unimportant, and normalizing violence against women through insistence on harmful traditional roles and relationships. This is due to our cultural socialization process and patriarchal attitudes, which condition girls to play passive roles and boys and the society in general to believe that women are incapable. Within our general society, one could clearly see strong elements of gender bias that closes the door for women to think that they are capable beyond the kitchen. The social conditioning allows girls very little opportunity to make decisions or develop leadership skills. Ingrained detrimental stereotypical judgment of women and girls, especially in the outer islands of the Maldives. So sadly, media has a lot to blame because media plays a role in producing media content that not only reinforces the detrimental gender bias, but worsens the status of the already victimized victims of gender violence, etc. Then the Maldivian media scene is currently enjoying an unprecedented freedom. A level of maturity can be seen where oppression-given articles of anger and frustration has leveled off, giving way to more balanced reporting. But it remains a very gender-biased, gender-blind media, which is not a unique status looking at our region. and also what I heard over here, our media continues to struggle with gender equity. The current reality is that South Asian patriarchal heritage continue to condition certain structural, functional, and cultural barriers to women's participation. Women and girls are facing new and emerging challenges, also because of our biased and disproportionately burdened life and how it impacts us as women. And the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the urgency of integrating service delivery and improved access for women to mental and physical health services, income and employee support, social welfare, and legal and justice systems. As you work through your careers, all of you, I'm sure many of you must have found yourselves isolated in settings that disregarded you as capable individuals. I'm sure many of you got trapped into no-win situations and role conflicts that are imposed by society, such as acting compassionate, which according to socially prescribed rules is feminine, got you associated with incompetence, and acting decisive and competent got you linked with the opposite polarity of masculine traits, which question your femininity. I have always been a person, even as a child, who could not understand or silently tolerate the disparity, initially not being aware of the root cause. But I always felt that such discrimination was unfair, unjust, and not acceptable. At different stages in my life, I did find myself crossing through environments that were infested with hostile male-dominated cultures, plagued with stereotypical thinking, politics of indifference, and governed by the language of exclusion, where women's different needs and experiences were ignored. Leadership journey for many women who break the glass ceiling was an uphill battle and face hardships and criticism from society, whether to conform, to back down, or to let go. My experience is that those who succeed are those who do not succumb to the societal pressure. When I encountered it, I asked myself, why should I give in? Because to me, womanhood is just me as I am, with all my feelings as a woman, just how I am doing what I do genuinely to the best of my ability. And there was a moment in my life when I decided that I would not be afraid to express my individuality. I refused to live a life and entertain someone else's idea of what womanhood is, or succumb to socially prescribed rules that force me to believe that acting feminine in a leadership position is a weakness. Look, we women must respect that women within each one of us which battles for expression. And we do it as a female, as a woman. And based on my experience in many areas of work, both public and private sector, with many vulnerable women, my advice is that the best way forward to shatter the glass ceiling is simply to understand that society's demands of female gender role is at present contradictory to its demands of leadership role. And we must face the challenges with level-headedness and emerge stronger from them rather than allow them to bog you down. Embrace your feminine values, enjoy as a woman, work as a woman, make the most of life's opportunities and learn from every opportunity and challenge that life brings along just by being a woman. We as women, we must understand and accept that nobody gives us power. We seek it, we give it, and we take it. We should never struggle to have power over men, but we must exert power over ourselves and empower ourselves, because the empowered women, quote, the empowered women is powerful beyond measure and beautiful beyond description. Our own view of ourselves limits us. We need to reshape our own perception of how we view ourselves if we want to succeed in leadership or if we want to succeed in our career. The important thing is not to get disheartened when we encounter anxiety or face disappointments and allow the disappointments to deter you from moving forward. It is how you handle these anxieties and setbacks that will ultimately define your path towards success. We need to stand up and stop our own defamation, stop victimizing ourselves, and begin to believe in ourselves, our strengths, and our self-efficacy, and become confident and comfortable with who we are as women. Among us here are many of you are women of substance, women of class in terms of where you have reached. You reached here by thinking big, dreaming the impossible, and aiming for perfection relentlessly with resilience and commitment without hesitating to be different or to be daring. There is no limit to what a determined mind can achieve. Never ever cut corners or compromise on the values of femininity, fair play, and honesty as we try to break the glass ceiling and achieve our dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mariam Shakila. Our next guest is Ms. Tahira Habib. She is Senior Manager Outreach and Complaints Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. We would like to hear from her about all her experiences and whatever message she wants to convey to us today. Tahira Habib, please please turn your microphone on.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Wajiha Raza. It's an honor and privilege to be invited to participate in this star-studded webinar organized to commemorate International Women's Day. Actually, International Women's Day offers us an opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made so far and to call for change and to celebrate and recognize women who are changing the narrative. I will be talking about the women's rights movement in Pakistan, my experience, Pakistan's experience, where women started and where women stand today. Pakistan came into being as a result of partition of subcontinent, and it was a really traumatic experience for the people, especially women. It is reported that 75,000 women were abducted and raped during that short period. And here today, we in Pakistan stand proud that we elected a woman prime minister, first woman prime minister in the Muslim world, and she was elected twice. But at the same time, women politicians in Pakistan still face many hurdles and obstacles to cross the biases to hold high positions because of the patriarchy. The society has a discriminatory cultural bias coupled with biased media. Not only they hinder the way of women to enter politics, but they also continue to impact their performance in the parliament. When we say that women have excelled in politics, but we must consider that politics is still considered in Pakistan a masculine profession. Political parties are not ready to give party ranks easily to women. Women's presence in key decision-making position is still negligible. And a recent study by the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan revealed that even today, 80% women legislators felt that they are discriminated against in their homes, in their political parties, and in the parliament. A host of pro-women laws have been enacted in Pakistan to protect women against gender-based violence, and that's a very welcome step. But at the same time, the number of reported gender-based violence cases are constantly on the rise across the country. Harmful customary practices like murder, killing of women and girls in the name of so-called honor, child marriages, exchange rape, all these acts are criminalized but continuing unabated. In December, on standalone laws to stop rapes, to counter honor killings were made, and then the amendments were brought to speed up convictions and toughen sentences. But according to the reports, number of rape cases are still increasing. During COVID-19, girls' education suffered the most, as according to the official data here in Pakistan, only 6 to 7% girls have internet connectivity. The point I'm trying to make here is that today the women of Pakistan have all the reasons to be proud and celebrate the progress they have made so far. But we do realize that achieving women's equal human rights is an ongoing struggle, and especially in a society like ours where religiosity plays a major role. The agenda is unfinished, and the most affected are women and girls who suffer from intersectional discrimination. But now, after the hard struggles in the past 70 years, when initially we focused on the welfare schemes and quota and special seats for women, basically we thought that they need more hand-holding. And we then graduated to reforming the state through pro-women laws. Now we feel that we have the capacity to advance towards gender equality by challenging the code of existence imposed on us by the patriarchal society, not made by us. So we realize that we must reform discriminatory laws and policies which allow, and we need to bring them in line with the international human rights law. We must transform discriminatory social norms and harmful gender stereotypes into more equal social structures and power relations for all genders. We must work more to eliminate gender-based violence and protect and expand the civic spaces of women human rights defenders and feminist movements, facilitate equal participation of women in non-traditional spheres like for women like political, economic, social, cultural life, especially political scene. And we must ensure gender equality, starting from our homes to decision-making state institutions. That was all I wanted to say on this International Women's Day celebration from Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Taira Habib. We are short of time, but we think we can take some questions from our guests. Dr. Ambrish, I can see some questions which are directly.
Please, if you can take the question, Dr. Wazia, from Shaila Katzman.
Right. There is a question from Dr. Sheila Katzman. She's asking, women in media of the Beijing platform action has two strategic objectives. Strategic objective 1, increase the participation and access to women to expression and decision making in through media and new technologies. I believe this is a comment.
But allow me, if you will, just for 2 minutes.
Please.
Applaud Lebanon and their media women for making such great strides. And my question for Lebanon is, how has this affected the programs that the public sees? And you hold on to that question. And for Egypt, I know you know Abir Sahadi, who is my very good friend, working in covering Egypt for quite some time. That 98, I think you said 98 women judges and so on. And I'd like to know out of how many. And lastly, I just want to say that when I think of the glass ceiling, what does it mean breaking the glass ceiling? And I'm glad a couple of people brought race into it, which means overcoming barriers. For me, I want to push away those barriers to reach this glass ceiling, right? Because when we talk about glass ceiling, we're talking about feminism, which wasn't meant for Black and brown people. It was for white women who wanted to work, while Black and brown people wanted a vacation. We wanted to rest, if you receive my meaning. And lastly, on gender quota, called by Lucia Gloria, this is something supported by CEDAW, and I'm the chair for the Cities for CEDAW in New York City here in New York. I'm, former UN Public Information Chief. And in the sense of affirmative action. However, for me, this kind of quota should bring women, including female media women, up to par. What CEDAW said, that's the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, is that, yes, let's have affirmative action, but it shouldn't be a permanent thing. It should be, we should work very hard to bring women up to par of all races, culture, or whatever it is. And I just ask all the women here that when you break that glass ceiling, remember, tear away those barriers so that other women can follow behind you. This is a wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sheila. Dr. Wazia, I want to raise a point here because listening to so many speakers, in some way or the other, the reference was being made to the political system, the people who are at the helm of affairs. And this was raised that Dr. Tahira was making a mention about the laws which have been made, women-specific laws for their, for violence against women or for their upliftment and all. And other speakers were also referring to the other politics. So my question is that, how much politics is important if we look into the issues of gender equality or women empowerment, how much the politics is important, and also how much space should be given to the women in the government so that they can influence the policy making, they can influence the law making, and thereby helping in an improvement in the status of women. So if any one of the panelists can throw some more light on this.
Dr. Katia, would you like to add something, and any other person? Yes, Tahira and Dr. Katia, please. And anybody else? Yeah.
I would say that through electoral reforms, women should be given all those facilities which are available to men, so they can also join parliaments and decision-making institutions. It's not that what percentage they should be there to have pro-women policies, because at the core of policy making, if we see in Pakistan, there's negligible number of women. And then it also depends on the philosophy of the political party in power as well. Some political parties, where they have pro-women agenda, some don't. So it really depends on that as well, which political party is at the helm of affairs in your respective country. And then I think women should be given equal opportunity to fight for parliament seats. That I would say that no percentage one can think of.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Dr. Wajia, please.
Yes, I can see a couple of questions. So here, and one question is from Mudita Raj. She directly, I think, posted here, and it says, how has the COVID pandemic affected working women as we see across the globe a rise in crimes against women? So anyone, Dr. Katia, would you like to answer that question? And all other than... Yeah.
Could you repeat the question, please?
It says, how has the COVID pandemic affected working women as we see across the globe a rise in crimes against women?
Yes, the global pandemic makes difference for the women and all over the world, I think. Jobs, opportunities, and a lot of things that I talk about, violence, it's all over the world. So the pandemic is, because some of the women does not denounce. It's difficult to denounce when you are inside your home and you can't go outside and to make some denounce. And the increase of number of violence, it's so big, and you can't count this. It's difficult to know all over the world what happens with so many women, and the economic situation and the political situation and things like that contribute to today to stay at home and not to work, to go out home, to denounce and to work and to talk to another woman. And this is really the pandemic time. Really, still is a problem for a woman all over the world.
Dr. Wajia, I want to raise one more point referring to what Christy Mary has said about success. In a way, whatever Dr. Mariam was also telling us, the women getting certain achievements, certain positions, certain place in parliament, becoming the ministers, affecting the policy making. is that all what is meant by success, or getting education to every girl child is part of success, or ensuring due space to women is part of success? How can we define success in terms of gender equality, in terms of women empowerment, in terms of women emancipation? How can we define success? Yeah. Yes, Dr. Shetty.
I can answer.
Yeah, please.
I think education and political participation is the key to solve this problem. We have few women in the power, in the Congress, and political policies are still so, in pandemic times, worse than any time. So political participation, women in power, this is I think can change the things.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Katya. Dr. Mariam, yeah, please.
Yeah.
I think just one of them alone would not work. You know, it has to be a combination of a lot of things. Like, for example, a country like Maldives, we don't have any disparity when it comes to education between girls and boys. And then, in fact, girls are achieving better. And then there's no restrictions. Maldives has also signed up on all those international treaties. It also has got laws and regulations that would to help gender parity, but we all fail in implementation. There are also politicians, there are also in the justice system, there are women, but again, we fail in implementation. So it has to be a combination of a lot of things. There has to be a will to change. We have to change the mindset of a lot of people if we need to bring any of these changes, you know. So to lay the foundation for a gender respected and gender sensitive, gender responsive work environment and bring about any transformative change for women requires policy that recognizes, reduces, and counteracts gender discrimination in every sense, based on values, ethics, respect, attitudes, and the love from all of us, you know. So we can't have it just only education or only policies or only politics or a quota system, you know. None of them would work just by itself.
Yeah, Dr. Vajia, I will request you. Yeah.
Yes, I think that our panelists did schedule certain
but
time.
Tahira ji wants to say something.
Tahira wants to add something. I think she should go ahead, and we would try wrapping it up, I think, in a few minutes. Yeah. Yes, Tahira.
About success, that what is the definition, or what do you consider success? I would say that what we are striving for is not only equal opportunities, which will come through education, and equal opportunities will come through political policies. I think women of the world should have choices. They should have choices at whatever they want to do. I mean, it's not a compulsion that a woman must work. There should be a choice whether she wants to work, she doesn't want to work. She should have the same choices which men have. And I think opportunity and choices combination makes success. Thank you.
Right. Dr. Amrish, I think one thing is that women's engagement in media industry, we all know that it varies from country to country. And despite a drive for emphasis on gender equity, women face toxic issues everywhere. They face these issues in profession, at home, and in all other places. But we can see that glass barriers have been breaking in many places. And most of our panelists have highlighted that how women have contributed and how their contribution is increasing over the years. So, for instance, if we talk about Pakistan-like country, we would know that Sharmeen Abu-Chinoy broke the barrier by producing films. And we also had a woman who was, I believe, at least one woman who was chairperson in one of the media channels in Pakistan. So at least at the city level. So I think that things are changing for women. It was very important and interesting that Dr. Katia brought up issues of domestic public and political violences against women in the 21st century, and these problems keep increasing, and we need to think about like how situation can be improved for women. Dr. Tami Gold talked about lots of things, for example, spaces for women, about films made by women and for women, and New Day Films Cooperative, and women and men and women filmmakers, and gender non-conforming filmmakers, etc. And issues related to distribution of films made by women or for women. I think it was very interesting to hear from Dr. Safa Osman about women in Egypt who are, like learning to reject violence, and they are getting greater awareness of their rights. And I think that we can certainly relate when I mentioned that women face honor killing in countries like Pakistan when they talk about their simplest right, for example, right to spouse selection, etc. I think all these issues are very important that we brought up today, and I appreciate that Dr. Christy Maddy mentioned that 45% parity is there when it comes to media women in Lebanon. I hope I'm not quoting wrongly, and this is what I understood, but she said at senior level, their participation drops to 30%. So we all know that when women have dreams, there are gaps in women's positions in society. As Dr. Patricia mentioned, we have women face access and parity issues on almost every profession, and from the very start of their life, they have to fight with stereotypes, right? So I think that as our filmmakers, Dr. Lucia Gloria and also Dr. Tami Gold have mentioned, and I believe that Safa Osman and other members of prestigious members of this panel are also engaged in filmmaking or have relationship with visual culture, and all of them have highlighted that these issues need to be addressed in films and in also criticism. So I believe that things would continue changing, but women have to work harder, right? So women participation and funding needs to be improved. I think it was mentioned that where in Spain, women get less money for their films and for their distribution of films, and all these issues are very important, and women contribution needs to be improved in every sector. Women have to learn that they should not be asking for company when they are assigned a job. For instance, in Pakistan, we keep coming across situations in offices and many places that when you tell a woman to do a job, she asks, "Sir, can you send someone with me?" And I keep telling my students, for example, that if you need company to deliver your job, then it means that why should anyone hire two people to do the same task when you can just hire a male and he would do the job? So women need to work on many things. I think the best part was that in Pakistan, women broke the glass ceiling at certain levels, but women contribution is very low when we compare with modern or Western societies, etc. So I think I would like to thank all the panelists who are here today and who have told us about all these things. I just want to ask if there are any particular questions, if any particular things that you would like to add at this point. So I think we should do that, and then I think we have already taken extra time for most of the panelists. So yeah, please go ahead.
Is there anything, any final thing anybody wants to say? Then that's
or add. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think then let's just move on to wind up the session. From my side, I would like to thank to all the panelists, and first and the foremost, don't doubt about this, this whole thing has become possible with the support of Dr. Wajia Raza Rizvi. And then I thank all the panelists, Dr. Katia, Dr. Safa Osman, Christy Medi, and then Dr. Patricia, Lucia, Dr. Shakila, Tahira Habib, and everybody else who is there in the panel, and all those members of the audience, the media educators, researchers, media students who have been there in this session, because in India is close to 10 p.m. in the night. So still the students are there. So that's a welcome thing that they are anxious enough, they are excited enough to listen to all these eminent speakers. So I thank everybody. Thank you. Thank you.